Hey, hey, hey. Happy Monday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Welcome aboard. Tonight is Monday, June 27th, 2022. This is live stream number 804. If this is your first time joining me, let me point out, super casual around here. We're just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news and taking a look at a tabletop game. And all throughout the month of June here on the Dispatch, it has been the Fantasy Role-Playing Game Celebration. Are these considered jazz hands? Is that jazz hands or is this jazz hands? I don't know. I don't use jazz hands usually. Anyway, so tonight we are actually going to be taking a first look at the Castles and Crusades Players Handbook from Troll Lord Games. In fact, all week long, we are taking a peek at Castles and Crusades, and even 2 additional videos, because we've got 5 books that the fine folks over at Troll Lord Games sent along for me to share with you. And we're going to be diving on in and taking a peek. Also, stay tuned, because I've got a contest where you'll be able to get in the running to win 1 set of all 5 books in PDF. So stay tuned for that. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Also, because this is a live stream, that also means there is chat available. It's not on screen. One of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But I do my best to pay attention to chat. Also should mention, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least 48 hours to take part in chat as well. Yet another way that I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. So if you want to say howdy, or maybe you've got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in, and I will do my best to respond as I have something on my eyelash here. It's a bunch of fuzz kind of floating around down here in the Duct Tape Studios. It's always something. Hey, knock on wood, we haven't had the flock of ladybugs that we normally will see about this time of year. Maybe it's about July that they start hitting, mid-July. Because there had been a few shows last year. I was like, oh my God, these ladybugs, I mean, they're harmless, but just they were so distracting. They'd be hitting the lights, walking around on the soft boxes, and you're like, what's going on here? What is this on my cheek? Or it's on my eyelash. Talk about distracting. Whoa! Sort of like, get off me, get off me. All right, so let's see who is in chat. So I'm pretty sure Mr. Eddie T, yes. Mr. Eddie T was first out the gate tonight in chat. 245 Trioxins with us. Christopher Rush. is joining us. It has been a while since Christopher joined us. Helga Ratbones here. Zero Theory is also in chat. So Mr. Eddie T is one of our chat moderators. And I would assume, although I know what assuming does, I saw that episode of Sanford and Son. I'll assume Sarah D is not far behind. Sarah's also one of our chat moderators too. So we're going to jump on into the tabletop gaming news in just a second. Do want to mention something, and I've said this before. Some people don't like this, but it's a fact. I live in this world. It's, it's not all games. The real world affects me. Man, Friday was a bummer. I saw it coming. Everybody saw it coming. But still, a bummer nonetheless. I, as a man, I cannot have a child. I cannot carry a child to term. I personally don't believe that I have the right to tell anyone else, especially a woman, what to do with their bodies, and that they have to have a child if they are pregnant. Not my place. Just is not my place to do that. So the thing that kills me is the hypocrisy I have seen from people. The same folks that went apeshit about having to wear a mask and how their rights were being violated and you're taking my rights away are the same exact people who have absolutely no problem telling a woman that she cannot have an abortion. Man, the dictionary should have hypocrisy. Boom, right there. Omanal is with us. He says 9th and 10th Amendment state issue. I don't have an issue with that. I really do not have a problem with it being a state issue, but I do have a problem with people's rights being snatched away from them, a right that was already given to them. Anyway, I'm not going to go harp on this all night long. I'm just saying, man, it was a bummer. But, there's ways to change that. Get off your dead ass and go vote. So that's part of it. MC's with us as well. Good to see MC. All right, so let's jump on into the news, because on the horizon from AEG and Flatout Games is Verdant. Here's the latest. Verdant is a puzzly spatial card game for 1 to 5 players. You take on the role of a houseplant enthusiast, trying to create the coziest interior space by collecting and arranging houseplants and other objects within your home. You must position your plants so that they are provided the most suitable light conditions and take care of them to create the most verdant collection. Each turn, you select an adjacent pair of a card and token, then use those items to build an ever-expanding tableau of cards that represents your home. You need to keep various objectives in mind as you attempt to increase plant verdancy by making spatial matches and using item tokens to take various nurture actions. You can also build your green thumb skills, which allows you to take additional actions to care for your plants and create the coziest space. Verdant is for 1 to 5 players, ages 10 and up, plays in around 30 to 45 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $39.99. When it arrives this summer, I do not have an exact release date just yet. This did successfully kickstart for Flatout Games, and Flatout Games has recently kind of been working with AEG as far as their releases. Now, I have played Calico and reviewed Calico, and I think it's a fun game. I think it is a blast with the right crowd. My mom really digs it. My sister-in-law enjoyed it. Even, my nephew Cameron liked it as well, and Elliot's played it. So all in all, but I have not played the other Concordia, which is the other title that AEG released from Flatout Games. That looked pretty cool as well. I do believe Beth Sobel is Sobel. Why did I say Sorbel? Beth Sobel is the artist on this as well. And I think it's kind of funny. We see the little cat sitting there on the chair. So, all right. Anyway, so MC points out, weren't conservatives the ones warning us about activist judges legislating from the bench? Yeah, I know. See, I'm lucky. I live in a blue state, which I'm a liberal, so yeah, that kind of works out well for me. Although I lived in Arizona for 10 years. That was kind of odd sometimes. All right, let's see. Who else did we just see popping on in? Oh, Flaming Huron's with us. Another of our chat moderators. So we've got 3 of our 4 chat moderators with us tonight, because I saw Sarah D popped on in and kind of gave us a little wave. And anyway, we know our 4th is not here. He's on vacation. That is the Madman is enjoying their vacation. All right, on to the next news piece, because arriving this week from Backspindle Games is Lucha Wars. I've got the skinny. Lucha Wars is a 2 to 8 player dice game based on the popular world of professional Mexican wrestling, or Lucha Libre. Libre? I forget how it's pronounced. The game is a new variation with new content to Luchador Mexican wrestling dice. Each player selects a Luchador wrestling character to play and rolls their grapple dice to try to either reduce their opponent's life points to 0. Jeez. Would he kill them? To win by a knockout, KO, or hold the opponent down on the mat for a count of 3 to win by a pin. Each wrestler has individual life levels, pinnable level, and combo attack zones. Also, they each have their own special attacks that can be used during a match by rolling their special attack die. Players begin by each rolling their own set of 5 wrestling dice. I should say wrestling dice. At the same time, trying to ensure that they land in or touch the wrestling ring. The results of hits, dodges, and miss rolled are played off against each other, with dodges being re-rolled once, which can also be used to target the opponent's dice. The player with the highest hits is the winner for that round, and the loser takes the difference in damage off their life track. Additionally, the winner records the victory by moving their counter up 1 tile on their special attack track. The special attack track allows a player to do their, you guessed it, special attack, attempt to pin an opponent, attack using the combo die, and attack with a weapon if you're playing a weapons match. If a player has reached the pin tile on their special attack track, the 3 count begins against their opponent. The player being pinned has 3 attempts to save using 4 of their 5 wrestling dice, or they lose the match. I got to point out, there is a lot more information about the various different matches you can play in Lucha Wars. I just didn't want to go on for like 5 minutes talking about the game. But by all means, check it out, because there's like ladder matches, weapon matches, free-for-alls. This game is for 2 to 8 players, ages 8 and up, plays in around 15 to 45 minutes. It's going to carry an MSRP of $34.95 when it arrives in stores. It's supposed to hit stores this week. 245 Trioxin says they live in a purple state. It's nerve-wracking. Hopefully people get along. Remember the days when we could disagree about things and just still be friends? I miss those days. I like those days. When people talk about, the good old days, I'm not talking the 1950s, because for one, I wasn't around. I'm talking about when we could sit down and agree to disagree and still, have a drink together, have a meal together, have a friendly conversation. We weren't necessarily at each other's throats. Yeah, to me, those are the good old days. All right, on to some role-playing game news, because there is a bundle of holding that's currently running. I got to be honest, this is a short running bundle of holding. I was very surprised by this, but it does feature the Old West role-playing game Aces and Eights from Kenzer and Company. Here's the deets on the deal. Ho there, partner. We've rebooted our September 2015 Aces and Eights bundle featuring Aces and Eights, Kenzer and Company's comprehensive role-playing game of life in America's Old West. Updated in this offer to the new Reloaded Second Edition, Aces and Eights presents a realistically deadly combat system using its imaginative shot clock game aids, targeting grids printed on transparent plastic overlays and placed on target silhouettes to identify hit locations. Dozens of professions cover the full range of possibilities in the Wild West. As Kenzer puts it, the rest of the Western adventure beyond the gunfight. Our original September 2015 offer featured the 2010 Shattered Frontier edition of the Aces and Eights core rulebook. In April 2017, Kenzer kickstarted an Aces and Eights Reloaded Second Edition. This revival presents the new Reloaded Edition along with the compatible First Edition Shattered Frontier support line. If you purchase this offer back during its 2015 run, you'll actually receive the new Reloaded rulebook automatically in your Wizard's Cabinet download page. This revived 2015 offer once again delivers an express coach full of everything you need to run your own campaign of Wild West adventure, with rules as open and extensive as the land itself. For just $14.95, you get all three titles in this revived offer's player collection, which has a retail value of $40, as DRM-free PDFs, including the lavish 393-page Reloaded core rulebook, the Shootist Guide with extra target silhouettes, and the introductory solo adventure Bad Day at Buena Roca. If you pay more than the threshold price of $25.89, well, that might have changed a little bit, you'll level up and also get this revival's entire Game Master collection with 7 more titles worth an additional $100, including the Judas Crossing location sourcebook, 2 big Rustlers and Townfolk books of non-player characters, and 4 complete adventures. One of them, Harshaw Creek, is also new in this revival, and again, previous customers will get this new edition automatically. These savings run through June 29th, as I mentioned. Kind of short because I think this just launched last week, the end of last week. Yeah, jump on while you can. 10% of your payment after gateway fees will be donated to Direct Relief. I am pretty clueless about Aces and Eights outside of the fact that I have heard about the kind of targeting system that it utilizes that I think is pretty cool. I think it is a pretty cool. So, check it out if you are interested. I have to say, one of my favorite role-playing game experiences when I was younger was a gentleman was running Boot Hill at a game day that we went to. For some reason, I want to say it was in Arlington Heights, Illinois. Maybe it was, no, it wasn't Des Plaines. I think it was Arlington Heights. There was a hobby shop called the Squadron Shop, and it was mainly models and stuff, but they also carried some, board games and role-playing games and stuff. And they did a game day. I want to say, I think it was the summer after my freshman year in high school. And my best friend, Elliot Miller, our friend Scott Weigel, another friend of ours, think our friend Tim went with us. And we were sitting in on a Boot Hill game, and it was based on the movie Chisholm. So, so we got to meet John Wayne's Chisholm, Billy the Kid, and there was a lot to it. And it was kind of funny because one of my friends was really, I think it was Scott, who was kind of into Boot Hill. And he's like, where are these rules coming from that you're busting out on us? And it turned out that this gentleman, who was probably in his 50s at that point, had come up with all this stuff, and he had actually pitched TSR for an expansion book with all his stuff. And it was kind of like floating around. I don't think they ever used any of his stuff, but it was a good time. As someone who's traveled all around this country and traveled across the Wild West, that's not so wild anymore, but it is empty and desolate. It is pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing just to think how the settlers went from, say, St. Louis all the way to Oregon, Washington, California, obviously enough. Pretty wild. Pretty wild. And you're just driving across at 70 miles an hour, and you go a stretch of 2-3 hours without, about 2 hours sometimes, without any sort of gas stations or anything like that. It's sort of like, wow. All right. Anyway, so there's some discussion going on in chat. All right, no fighting. Christopher Rush had to rock on out. We'll be checking that out later on. Anyway, so Flaming Heron says, wow, certainly a lot of bundles of holding at the moment, some ending soon, obviously. GURPS 4th edition is a newbie too. I don't cover Steve Jackson game stuff, so no news about that. All right. So Omenal mentions the Great American Desert. Yes. And in ways it is. It is. It's not necessarily really a desert, but I mean, outside of the actual desert locations, but the plains, that's flat and just nothing. All right. Moving right along. The Robot Handbook is out for the Traveler role-playing game. Here's the dope from Mongoose Publishing. Robots have been a staple of science fiction for 100 years, fulfilling every role from near mindless worker to faithful sidekick to comic relief to sinister villain trying to take over the world. They range from remote-controlled drones to super-intelligent beings who have far exceeded the limits of their biological creators. Robots may be stationary objects equipped with a single arm, or nothing more than a radio to control other machines. They may move across the ground, sea, or sky, equipped with limbs, tools, and weapons of all kinds. The Robot Handbook is designed to be both quick and easy to use, and configurable to customize all aspects of a robot's functions, capabilities, and skills. A standard robot can be built in just a few minutes. It also includes rules for making nano-robots and micro-robots, androids, clones, biological robots, and brains for both vehicles and spaceships. I should say spacecraft. And what is a cybernetic limb but a robot part? The Robot Handbook covers everything from a cybernetic arm to a whole mechanical body with a live brain inside. The Robot Handbook comes complete with an immense catalog filled with robots built using these rules, acting as a springboard for your own designs, and allowing you to begin using robots right away to be tools, companions, or opponents for your travelers to encounter. The 264-page Robot Handbook, which I believe is going to be a hardcover, I would hope at this price, can be pre-ordered for $59.99, or you can grab the PDF right now over at DriveThruRPG for $30. MC says, hell yeah. I hope cybernetic limbs are a thing before I die. Yeah, that's pretty wild. MC also points out, amazing how long Traveler's been around. And it's also amazing how many versions of Traveler float around out there. Because you've got Mongoose, which theirs is considered, it's Mongoose Traveler Second Edition, is kind of how they're referred to. You also have Mark Miller's Traveler, and obviously enough, Mark is the original creator of Traveler. And then you also have the, is it the Cerebus engine? Cepheus engine? Something along those lines. In fact, there was a recent bundle of holding that featured a bunch of, I think it's the Cepheus engine off the top of my head. So there is a lot of different Traveler out there as well. So 245 Trioxin said, Traveler looks good. Prices are a bit much. Yeah, that is a bit of a problem there. What I recommend is keep your eyes out for when the next big sale at DriveThruRPG is going to be their Christmas in July, which usually runs for about 10 days. That is one of the best sales that DriveThruRPG has on a yearly basis. And that's when I would recommend jump on in, because usually you can save about 30%. And I'm pretty sure that Mongoose does take part in that sale. Zero Theory says, cue the die in character creation joke. Second edition, not so much. In fact, I think the death in character creation is an optional rule. 245 Trioxin says, I'll just wait for Savage Worlds Traveler. I don't know if you're ever going to see that. I got to be honest, I don't know. All right, final news piece. Now available in print and PDF is the latest Mega Dungeon from Dr. Greg Gillespie. Here's a scoop on Dwaro Deep, a new Mega Dungeon from Three Castles Award winner and Barrow Maze author, Dr. Greg Gillespie. Gungathal lies in ruin. Over 250 years ago, an evil host rose from the Underdark and pushed the dwarves out of their ancestral mountains. Since that time, orcs and worse have defiled their sacred halls. In recent days, the high dwarven clerics cast their runestones and read the portents. The time has come to retake Gungathal. Are you brave or foolish enough to enter Dwaro Deep? Dwaro Deep will keep your players on their toes and your campaign going strong for years. Dwaro Deep is brought to you by the Old School Renaissance. So don't forget your 10-foot pole. This project was created through a group of awesome backers from Kickstarter. Without them, this project wouldn't have happened. This Mega Dungeon adventure includes an all-star cast of ex-TSR artists, including Darlene, Larry Elmore, Tim Truman, Jeff D., and Diesel. I've always been a big Tim Truman fan. It features 150 unique epitomes. I think that's how it's pronounced. Art that tells a story of iconic adventures along the bottom of the page, illustrated by Peter Pagano. Dwaro Deep is the single largest dwarven-themed adventure in the history of role-playing games. Right now, you can get the 336-page black and white hardcover through DriveThruRPG for $70, or you can grab the PDF alone for $35. Gotta say, that's a lot of adventuring. Zero Theory says going on a long champion Mega Dungeon slog sounds like a blast. Viper Dave's with us. Good to see you, Viper Dave. So I'm always kind of curious. I have never run a Mega Dungeon. I have never played a Mega Dungeon. I have read a couple of Mega Dungeons. I always get the feeling that Mega Dungeons probably start off rocking and rolling, and then they get to a point where they just kind of die off. Long before the players and their characters get to the lowest level of the dungeon. So, I don't know. I'm kind of curious. You can let me know in chat if you've ever played in a mega dungeon and played it to completion, or if you watch after the show, by all means, let me know in the comment section. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about DriveThruRPG. Don't forget that the gaming gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit, say, DriveThruRPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. And all those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like this video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you like what we do, you can always buy me a cup of coffee or some soda by swinging on over to paypal.me/thegaminggang and making a small donation. Thankfully, a lot of people out there use those banner ads. And from time to time, we get somebody who makes a donation through PayPal. So it is much appreciated. Tip of the cap. Thank you very kindly. Should also mention, I am still currently offering a bunch of role-playing games, board games. I've got about 30 new war games. What am I thinking? It's like I saw something in chat and kind of all of a sudden I was like, threw me off for a second. Anyway, so check those out if you like. Once again, like I said, about 30 new war games are up there. And if you're taking a look and you see the prices for the war games, you're like, that's a little pricey for being used. Got to keep in mind, the vast majority of them are not used. They're unpunched. So they're not going for MSRP, but they're not going for like half price either because the shrink wrap was taken off them. So Mr. Eddie T is asking, is there a story as to why you don't do Steve Jackson games? There is. I do not want to get into it. Sorry. Just don't want to rehash that again. Let's just say over the years, they have not been overly kind to me or when Elliot was, in fact, they were very rude to Elliot. So back in the days when Elliot was part of the gaming gang, he was doing it. He was doing an interview with some folks from Steve Jackson Games. I had nothing to do with it because at that point in time we were just recording. We weren't doing video. And anyway, so we would do news pieces and stuff. We would do interviews at Gen Con, and never once were we able to get a review copy of anything. So anyway, so and then some other stuff happened, but a year and a half ago, and it was all my fault on that one. So looked like a real moron. Anyway, I kind of jumped at the chance to be like, Steve Jackson Games. And somebody was screwing with me. So Mr. Eddie T says, I always suspected that about Steve Jackson Games. I don't know. Maybe it was just us. I have no idea, but they would actually search us out for Gen Con to do interviews. So I don't know. I don't know if it was that's just how they are. Or, I mean, there are companies out there who will not provide review copies of stuff to reviewers. Goodman Games is an example. But then again, the correspondence I've had with folks at Goodman Games, and like Harley Stroh, who is actually Harley Stroh is trying to get them to do review copies with me. They've been nice. So I mean, if that's their policy, it's their policy. I'm not gonna freak out. So anyway, but yeah. So Zero Theory says, "Wow, it's a bunch of stories." Yes, it's story time today. No, it's not. Anyway, so Flaming Huron. Oh, just about 92's with us. How's it going? I don't know. Flaming Heron said, I tend to mention it because I know Jeff won't. Oh, yeah. The bundle of holding. Hey, that's okay. The other thing, too, is like with GURPS. GURPS is just like, if you want to ask about what's the crunchiest role playing game out there, I would probably say GURPS from my experience way back in the day. Zero Theory says, don't even ask him about FASA games. They were long gone before I started doing this stuff. 245 Tracks and says, Savage World's better than GURPS. Well, it's a whole lot easier than GURPS. So Flaming Aaron says, I love Crunch. And some people do. I mean, there are people who swear up and down GURPS is the greatest role-playing game system ever created. I'm not one of them, but I could see where they're coming from. I'll be very honest. I used to pick up GURPS source books because they were pretty interesting. So, and they had tons. They had like one of my favorite series of shared world novels. And this is where I first was introduced to George R.R. Martin, was the Wild Cards superheroes, which were excellent. And of course, GURPS came out with a source book for it, which was actually pretty good. And their source books were pretty good. It's just, it was like more rules on top of more rules on top of more rules. It was like, oh, geez. Zero Theory says they've read a few of the Wild Card novels. Yeah, I haven't read the newer ones. They kind of started tailing off towards, I don't know, number 13-ish. So I think the last one I had read, I was kind of like, eh. And then it was kind of dead for a while. And then a few years passed and then kind of re-energized. So I don't know. All right. So I am going to be taking a first look at the Players Handbook for Castles and Crusades from Troll Lord Games in just a moment. But I honestly think it's time for a brief intermission.
Yes, too many pauses can lose the race. But the pause that's always a winner is the pause that refreshes with a bottle of delicious, ice-cold Coca-Cola.
Old man Wilkins just hired me to sell his crummy Wilkins coffee. I think he just fired you, too.
Yes, the turtle was cheating. And Wilkins gets set on fire. Yes. All right, then. So today I am going to dive on in and take a first look at the Castles and Crusades Players Handbook from Troll Lord Games. It is written by Davis Chenault, Matt Golden, and Stephen Chenault. I think it's Stephen. I don't think it's Stephen. I think it's Stephen. With artwork provided by Peter Bradley and Jason Walton. This 228-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $39.99, or you can grab the PDF alone at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. Sarah D is like, violence from someone other than Wilkins? Yes. Well, actually, no, because it's Mr. Wilkins who set him on fire. So I guess technically it is Wilkins. All right, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the Player's Handbook. Sweet. So once again, we are working with, all right, what is in the way there? That's what it is. I was like, what's poking up in the corner? It's the computer's keyboard. Anyway, so we've got the new Panasonic GH5 Mark II shooting overhead, and I'm actually using a different prime lens, and it is a manual lens, so there is no autofocus in this. So I wanted to try the other lens because I want to see if the text is a little bit clearer with this other lens. Because if that's the case, I'll use the one lens I have with the zoom and autofocus, because this, like I said, has no autofocus for like board games and things like that, and use the 35 millimeter lens, which should actually be a 20 millimeter. I'm going to look, maybe pick one up, because I got to point out that camera is way up there. So I can't even reach it. And I just noticed I am not picture in picture. Yes, because I was shooting my review of the Guild of Merchant Explorers. If you have not checked this out yet, check out the review. And I was doing some overhead photography of the game, amazingly enough. All righty. So let's get into Castles and Crusades. I'm excited to take a look at these 5 core books that the fine folks over at Troll Lord Games, I should say, sent along. Because I've always heard good things about Castles and Crusades. So we're going to dive on in. First off, of course, I'm going to mention the fine folks over at Troll Lord Games did provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. As always, it's important that you know that. Also, I'm going to say picture in picture now that I realized I was not picture in picture. So as we take a peek through, I'll be cutting off a little bit of the upper left portion of the book. We're not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a good feel for what's in this Player's Handbook and kind of get a better feel for the mechanics of Castles and Crusades. I've always heard that this is rather modular, I should say, that you can plug different things in rather easily. So Zero Theory says, one day I'll open a book and find a $20 bill and have to change that whole intro. Now, never going to see that. That ain't going to happen, Dooley. All right, checking out the back here. What lies herein? Castles and Crusades is a tabletop fantasy role-playing game with countless possibilities. Designed for use with multiple players, Castles and Crusades puts you in charge of the adventure path. Included within are all the rules of play, how to get started in your very own role-playing game, how to run the game, and how to play in it. The Castles and Crusades Players Handbook introduces you to our easy-to-learn attribute-based rules system that allows players to choose among multiple archetypes to build their characters. Spells, fast-paced combat rules, and all essential information needed to play a game of Castles and Crusades are in this book. That's what I had heard. It says, reap the harvest of unending adventure. So there is a Castle Keeper's Guide, which we're going to look at tomorrow night. And whereas usually you would find in most role-playing games, when they have a trio of core books, you'll normally find the Player's Handbook has all the character creation rules. And then a lot of the rules to actually play the game are going to be located in the Game Master's book. And then, of course, usually you have a monster manual, a bestiary, as your third book in the trio. That is not necessarily the case here. I believe the Castle Keeper's Guide is more along the lines of how to run the game, as well as a lot of optional material for the game. So we'll find out tomorrow when we take a look at it. But as far as I understand, and I got to be honest, I've never, cracked open Castles and Crusades up until this point. So I'm kind of going on what I have heard in the past. So Flaming Heron's rocking and rolling out. We will see you later. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight. So we're going to jump on in. So one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of touch base with Troll Lord Games and take a look at Castles and Crusades is I kind of have like a nostalgic soft spot for Troll Lord Games, even though I've never looked at any of their games. And that is because Gary Gygax, this was kind of the last company he was affiliated with before he passed. And I think the folks over at Troll Lord Games kind of have that old school vibe to them. So I've also heard that you can take Dungeons and Dragons adventures from D&D through 3rd edition or so and port those over to C&C relatively easily. So we're going to find that out as well. It says we're role-playing and role-playing meet. So we get, what is the role-playing game? As I always kid around, if I ever wrote a role-playing game, it would just be one sentence and it would say, the book that's in your hands. What do you need to play? Dice, having fun. And then we get into our creation of characters here. So we have 13 classes. So we've got our attributes. So it looks like we've got our 6 standard attributes: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Each attribute has an impact on the game and can significantly influence class selection. So the classes we have, this is another aspect, I believe, of C&C, is there are a multitude of other classes and archetypes in other volumes that you can jump on in and play. So we got the barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, fighter, illusionist, knight, monk, paladin, which is what I usually play in computer role-playing games, rangers, which is my other one that I play, rogues, wizards, and assassins. So what do we have as far as races? We've got elves, dwarves, gnomes, halflings, half elves, and half orcs, as well as, obviously enough, humans. So what I'm kind of curious about is, because this is attribute based, so are our mechanics going to be where you have a bonus or possibly a negative modifier to die rolls? Or are you rolling like under? Like, say you've got a strength of 17, so you have to roll a 16 or under to be successful? So we also have primary and secondary attributes. Okay, so that's interesting. Let's take a peek. So human characters have 3 primary attributes, and demi-humans have only 2. So I guess that's kind of giving the human character race kind of a bonus, because you don't get, the things like, oh, I can smell gold from a mile away, or I can see in the dark. So here we've got our, okay, so there is a modifier. So we are doing a modifier based on your attribute. And of course, this system is known as the siege engine system. So it looks like we are attempting to meet or exceed a challenge base number. So it says if the associated attribute is a primary attribute, the challenge base number is 12. I would assume, depending on difficulty, higher or lower. And if it's a secondary attribute, the challenge base is 18. That is kind of interesting. So it does kind of give your player characters a bit more personality, because if you're somebody who, okay, one of my prime attributes is strength, you're really going to be more successful with strength related challenges, as opposed to other, like for your secondary. So that's kind of interesting. I'm kind of curious how that actually works in play. So it looks like we've got that's kind of cool, that artwork. There's a dwarf and a halfling fighting some like Lovecraftian. Nice. So kind of curious, if you are watching live, how does the text look? Does the text look relatively sharp? I'm hoping it does. Although, I also have to mention that, in case you didn't know, YouTube really, really condenses these files. So there is detail that is lost unless you're uploading in 4K, which I do not have the sort of internet connection where I can upload 4K streams. All right, so we've got our different classes here. And it looks as if. So, okay, so looking at a cleric. So first level cleric, it's 3 0-level spells and 1 first level spell. See, one of the things that always kind of bothered me, like in like old D&D, like isn't it basic D&D that the cleric doesn't have a spell at first level? It's like, okay. So here they've got 4. Of course, the 0-level spells are pretty, I would assume they're pretty weak. I don't think that your heroes in Castles and Crusades are as invulnerable as they tend to be in D&D. We'll find out. Nice artwork so far. Pretty cool. Hey, that is also a very cool piece of artwork. Tell you one thing about this Panasonic camera. Yeah, okay, with the autofocus, it's not all that great. So, that's a Panasonic thing. But I'll tell you what, these colors They are spot on. I mean, the colors you're seeing are the colors of this book. So Sarah D says that she's blind in one eye, can't see out of the other. And I'm watching on a 23-inch PC monitor. Text looks crisp. Mr. Eddie T also says the text looks crisp. All right. So something else that looks kind of interesting is that each of the classes has abilities at different levels. So that's kind of cool. Here's the knight. All right. The monk. So it looks like we get some abilities that they have right off the bat. And then we've got some that kick in at different levels. So let's get to the paladin. Let's see what the paladin has. So the paladin's prime attribute is charisma. Their alignment is locked into lawful good. D10 hit die. It's pretty much. So at first level, they can cure disease once a week. They can detect evil up to 60 feet away. They have a divine aura. They have divine health, so they're immune to disease. And they can lay on hands, heal 2 hit points per level once per day. So very, very similar to what you would find in D&D. Oh, did I just say that? Oh. But we also see we've got Turning Undead, Divine Mount at level 4, Aura of Courage at 6th level, Cure Disease. So it looks like that's up to level 12. Okay, and then we get into like higher level. So I was going to say, oh, is the cutoff 12? And before I said that, I noticed over here it's like up to 24. So I'm like, wait a second. So the paladin cuts off at 12, but the monk goes to 24? No. All right. So we've got high level progression. Bequeath Virtue. Smite Evil at 9th level. Divine Healing at 12th. Divine Intervention at 13th. Advanced Aura of Courage. Advanced Smite Evil. Charisma bonus. Divine Will. And Cleanse Soul at 24th level. So Zero Theory says you could always tell who the DM's favorites were when you got your paladin mount and it's a horse while your buddy gets a dragon. Yeah, I would think that would that'd be a giveaway that somebody's your dungeon master, game master's favorite. So we got the ranger. So far, so good. Now, something else I'm kind of curious about is high level play. And I know that's not important for a lot of people because let's be completely honest here. Very rarely will most gaming groups get to the point with their characters where there's high level play. That's why you tend to see a lot of fantasy role-playing games have a problem once characters hit about level 9. It's sort of like there's too much of a power creep. You've got wizards who are able to use different spells that completely screw with the game master's abilities to like surprise the players and things like that because they've got like talk to the dead and all these other things. And that's why you'll see a lot of published adventures that are high level will do nonsense to what we like to call gimp the players, to kind of pull the rug out from under the players' feet. So there's things like, oh, well, in this dungeon, there's a curse that you You can't cast divination spells. Yeah, that's it. It's like, yeah, okay. Thanks. I played all this time so that I could have these higher level spells, and now I can't use them. Thanks a lot. So that is what I'm kind of curious about with this as well. So now we're going to get into races. Also, like how we have the little tab on the side. I appreciate that. This is, as far as I understand, this is a new edition that has come out, I think, within the last year. And off the top of my head, I think this is the 8th edition of Castles and Crusades. So we've got completing the character persona, alignment, talking about law and chaos, good and evil, giving you a discussion here of the various different alignments, choosing a deity, equipment, starting coin. Here's our equipment here. All right, so I can see that we have a little bit of that Gary Gygax influence because we have a variety of different weapons that you would normally not see in other role-playing games, such as a bill hook. Yep, so we got weapons from here all the way down. Yeah, that's Gary Gygax just loved his pole arms. Just really, really dug those. All right, so equipment list. Now we discussion of encumbrance. I was like, all right, magic. Here we go. I'm going to take a guess. A large portion of this book is going to be devoted to magic. So we got arcane magic, divine magic, illusion magic as well. So we've got clerics and druids, saving throws. So here we've got all of our different spells. So let's see what we have at 0 level for clerics. Create water, detect alignment, detect magic. Hey, that's cool at a 0 level. Detect poison, endure elements, first aid, which cures 1 to 2 points of damage, light, and purify food and drink. So what we got? 0 level wizard. Arcane mark, dancing lights, detect magic, detect poison, endure elements, ghost sound, ooh, light, mage hand, mending, message, open or close, and prestigination. Something. I have no idea. Cool. And we go up to 9th level. Oh, that's kind of sweet. It's pretty cool. So, I don't know. Then we get into our descriptions. One thing I kind of like here is that we get the title of the spell, and then it tells us, okay, real quick in a sentence, this is what this does. Like veil, changes appearance of a group of creatures. And then we get into more of a traditional stat block for your spells. Nothing too insane. We don't, at least to this point, taking a look through, I'm not seeing any like 2-page spells. And as I always say, and of course, these are in alphabetical order. So we've got cleric spells and illusionist spells and wizard spells all throughout here. Anyway, what I was going to say is, as a game master, I always recommend that you make sure that your players memorize or have some sort of a printout or something of what their spells do. It should not be your responsibility to have to handle knowing every damn spell in the book, because that tain't cool, Dooley. All right, so still more spells here. Not a lot of images in the spell section. That's okay. I'd say we've got a good amount of artwork throughout. Okay, so here we get the Castle Keeper, which is your game master. I do believe that this is a cover to the previous edition of the Player's Handbook, because I've seen that image before over on, I think it was I think I've seen it like DriveThruRPG. So, okay, so here it looks like this is going to be how do you run the game? So we got maintaining pace, scale of the game, scales of play, working with the players, types of adventures. The rules are your servant, not your master. Very, very nicely put. If you follow the gaming gang, you know I am one of these people who's like, rules are fine, but I do not let rules get in the way of slowing me down running an adventure. If we have to hand wave something to keep things chugging along, and that's what I do, then we can figure out what's going on with an official rule later on. So here we got combat. So outline of a combat round. So we have a sample of a combat round. So we've got combat terms, surprise, initiative, combat actions, attack, cast a spell, move, use an ability, use an item. And then non-lethal and multiple actions. I don't think this has a very, very crunchy combat system. I could be completely wrong, but I don't think it is. Because for one, we're almost through the entire thing. So it looks like at minus 10 hit points, that is when you buy the farm. So I would take a stab here that your survivability is quite a bit higher than you would have in a standard old school Renaissance sort of retro clone. All right, just kind of taking a peek. So it looks like we wrap up with kind of the core rules of running the game. And not a whole ton of pages there. What do we got? Maybe 30? Yeah, a little more than 30 pages. Sweet. Then we get an index. Oh my gosh, did I not see a character sheet? No, I don't see a character sheet unless it was up front and we skipped it. All right, so that is the Player's Handbook for Castles and Crusades from the fine folks over at Troll Lord Games. And of course, I will have a review of this in the very near future. So this is available now. This is the latest edition of the Player's Handbook. Carries an MSRP of $39.99, or you can grab the PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. So if you were watching earlier, then you know I mentioned a contest. So throughout the week, we've already taken a look at the Player's Handbook. Next up, tomorrow's show, we're going to look at the Castle Keeper's Guide, which is a bit thicker. This looks like this is over 300 pages for this. So we're going to take a look at this on tomorrow's show. And then on Wednesday's show, we're going to take a look at the Monsters and Treasures book. But I also have the Codex of Erde, taking a guess. That's how it's pronounced. So this looks like this is kind of like the world book, the setting book, kind of maybe like an atlas of some sort, a gazetteer. So I am going to shoot a standalone video of this. And then I also have Gods and Legends, So, as I mentioned, I've got 5 relatively core books that I'm going to be taking a look at this week. And if you would like to get into the running to win a set of PDFs of all 5 books, this is how you're going to do it. So, for one, you have to be a subscriber to the channel. Easy peasy. And you have to comment on the videos, each one of those 5 videos. And it can't be, I want to win. It's got to be something, right? Something of some substance as far as a comment goes. And you have to comment on all 5 videos. So this isn't going to be a contest where there's going to be like 100 people in the running. I can guarantee you that. So on Tuesday's show next week, I will announce the winner because for a change, I'm remembering there's a holiday on the coming Monday. Usually I'm like, oh, it's like Thursday or Friday. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Monday's such and such. Damn it. I didn't say there's no show. So I'm like, I got to do it. So once again, get in the running to win all 5 of the Castles and Crusade books that I'm going to be looking at this week. Be a subscriber and comment on this video to start off with. You got 4 more videos to go to comment on. And of course, on July 5th, I will share who the winner is. All right. So that is it for this time out. So Mark Gotzinger, hoping that's close pronunciation. I'm sorry if it's nowhere near. Says it is the 8th printing. So it's the 8th print run for the Players Handbook. First printing is completely compatible with the newest. Yeah, that was something else that I understand, that the different editions that have come out may have cleared things up for various different concepts, but it's not as if it's like, oh, well, this is an all new edition of Castles and Crusades. So that is something else I had heard as well. Thank you for mentioning that as well, Mark. Okay, so that is it for tonight's show. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. Because not only will it let you know when the Dispatch streams live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock Central right here on YouTube. It'll also let you know when I upload other videos, such as, of course, my review of the Guild of Merchant Explorers and my upcoming first look at Call of Cthulhu, Cults of Cthulhu from Chaosium Inc. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find here on the YouTube channel. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Those of you who watched live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, big tip of the cap. Thank you very kindly. Of course, I know a lot of people out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very, very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to give this goofball a watch. Of course, I will be back tomorrow. Once again, as I mentioned, we're going to take a look at the Castle Keeper's Guide for Castles and Crusades from Troll Lord Games. And of course, here's wishing each and every one of you the opportunity to always enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.
Oh, hey, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. Check out the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch, or find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching.